That's when they get shot.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to WeatherBrains episode number 541, a Tuesday night special. It's the pre-show, and we are just all agitated and cranky. And
Isn't that the
Brian?
truth?
Brian apparently was working out with two attractive young women today.
Yes, a stress test, a medical procedure.
In fact, what he said, Brian said he was breathing heavily with two attractive young women today, and
yeah, especially when they put that daggum treadmill up to 15 degrees. Holy mackerel!
Yeah, this show's going down the tubes fast. Wow.
This is medical brains are us.
We're agitated because the blog has been attacked by these hacker guys.
That doesn't make me very happy either.
We have a local blog, AlabamaWX.com, and we have been struggling with hacker guys. I think it's Dr. John. He's the only guy we know smart enough to hack the blog, and yeah, he's just mad at us. He's mad at somebody here, and he's just decided to go bring the blog down. So we've been fighting that all day, and I'm mad at Google.
Uh-oh, what Google do?
Well, they got this new thing now where apparently if you have several devices pulling down email, it locks your account.
What?
So yeah, here at the station, I have two iPads, a phone, and two computers that all do the same thing. You know, they pull down email, and
right
now every day it says, "I'm sorry." It says whenever you try and like pull a graphic or something from email, you can't see it. It says your account has been suspended temporarily. There's a security element because too many devices are accessing it. So that's just insane. I mean, you know, there's a lot of people that got a whole bunch of doodads that are going to be pulling email. I mean, I don't understand that. So
yeah, that makes sense.
WordPress and Google and everybody. So I'm just cranky.
Let's just life is good. All, James.
Yeah, I was looking at the Capital Weather Gang site.
What is wrong with my lower third?
My lower third wouldn't work at all last week. And Bill, your camera's fogged. It looks like you've been breathing heavily with young women. Your camera looks like
I put Vaseline over it, so I would look like Hedy Lamarr or something.
Oh, great.
How about that? Do I look less foggy? Y'all all look foggy all the time, no matter what I do. So.
I'm about to say, for some of us, it's better if you're in the fog.
Hey, I was looking at the Capital Weather Gang's webpage, and I like their webpage. If we're going to go to something new, let's go to something like theirs.
Well, we'll pull it up here in a minute.
Where you get the title and a picture and the first few lines.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to have to do that, apparently, because one of our major benefactors wants that to happen. So...
Well, I've been looking for a site that was really good at doing that, and I like the Capital Weather Gang site. So.
Well, we can do that right now. I can do that by pushing one button.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know it was that easy. That's what I get for thinking.
But there's some guy on Facebook holding a cat who complains every time we do something to the blog.
Well, tell him to
but just remember, an overwhelming majority are coming in on their phone, not a computer. The one thing I've learned about
it doesn't affect them. They're seeing it the way Brian's talking about.
Yeah.
Already. They're used to it. You know, what we're doing is showing this long, giant, continuous stream of posts that, don't have excerpts.
Well, to me, the desktop users, the importance of that's just kind of faded. I mean, that's a fading.
Good. All right, well, I'm going to change it this weekend. Thank you for that permission, Mr. Span.
They're fading.
Thank you, Brian. I'll send you the check tomorrow.
I'm fading.
Hey, John, thank you, baby.
Yeah, I'm fading right now.
You need to come show me your Bermuda shirt.
Let me see the Bermuda shirt.
Hey, John, come show your Bermuda shirt off.
I want to see the Bermuda shirt. You didn't bring me anything from
Bermuda shorts, I hope.
Yeah.
No, it's a Bermuda shirt. I hope you like my shirt. I have a nice shirt on. Oh, nice shirt. Like, what does it say there, John?
Brought to you by Alabama Power Company.
Yes. Oh, Rick Smith just joined. I can't see their shirt. Let me get you up here, John.
You went to Bermuda and all you got is that
look at that
shirt.
Is that a piranha?
Yes, that's a piranha.
Do they have piranha there?
No, but they have Portuguese men of war. Lots of them.
I swam with a barracuda in the Abacos once. Does that count?
Yeah, that counts. Chew your leg off. All right, I got to make sure we invite our James, are you inviting our guests?
I haven't done anything. I'm just sitting here cranky about malware on WordPress and Google. So
sick of it.
Hey, James, we had a very successful SEC baseball tournament.
Yes, we did.
So I saw you made those ESPN camera guys abandon their position out there in the outfield.
No, I didn't. That's their rules. That's their rules. I told the SEC guy that the thunderstorm was moving away from us, and the lightning did move away from us. And that's what I told him.
So
ESPN
has the ESPN guys to ditch.
The ESPN guy on station, on staff there, has a hard and fast rule. If there's any, not just, not 12 strokes, but one stroke within 10 miles, they are to shut down and stay shut down for a half an hour.
So their rule is 10 miles.
Their rule is 10 miles. Yes.
And the SEC rule is 8 miles.
Yeah, I'm trying to convince the SEC to go to 10. I have a campaign underway. But
so if there was a lightning strike within 10 miles, then they should have suspended the game.
They should have, but they consulted their meteorologist, and I said it's moving away. It's not a threat, and it wasn't. It moved away.
Well, I turned it on Sunday afternoon, and again, I've been busy, and I saw the guys on TV said we have lightning in the area, which means some of our camera operators had been pulled from their positions. And I looked at the lightning data, and by then it was all gone. I mean, there's no lightning at all.
There were 2 strikes. One was 3 miles away. The second one was 5 miles away, and that was it. And the thunderstorm was already south of us. Southeast of us, actually. That was blowing everybody's mind. Nobody expected to be moving from northwest to southeast, so that was blowing everybody's mind. And I was in contact with the SEC official and explained to him that I didn't think there was any need. Yes, it was within 8 miles, but the lightning was moving away. Now, I know, any lightning strike, it could be, but these things weren't going to, they were popping up and down in 10 minutes.
It's
so anyway, the ESPN has non-staffed cameras, and that's what they continued to use.
So I want to hear more about the SEC commissioner's daughter is a meteorologist now. So is she there too?
Yes.
So who was the boss, you or her?
Me.
She was second guessing you, Brian.
No, she wasn't. No, as a matter of fact, somebody walked into, and by the way, I had my own office. Somebody walked into the weather office and said, I want to talk to the meteorologist. And everybody there pointed at her because she's much better looking than I am. And she said, nope, he's in charge. So she's a very nice young lady. She's in Fort Wayne, Indiana, on WANE, Hannah Strong.
Okay. Well, good deal. I thought that she was going to come down and see me when I was there Friday.
I tried to get her down there. She said she got down there and you weren't there. And then I told her, no, you're there. You're still doing the 6 o'clock news. And she said she came back, but you didn't make contact. I'm sorry. I tried my best.
Okay.
I was matchmaking at the highest order.
So all the new interns start coming in this time of the year. And I see we have one again this year from Valparaiso.
Yes,
the place where Ginger Z came from.
Is she going to work from 3 a.m. to noon?
I don't know. And times have changed. When for years and years and years during all those great intern years, I worried about being on television and doing some radio. When we're now, with all this stuff we do, it doesn't stop. I mean, I walk in this building at 2:30 p.m. after doing these talks, and every second I have to do all the production, and then you walk in that studio and you go on television at 4 o'clock, and you're on TV at 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock, and what the sad thing is, it's taken away my ability to deal with the interns, so I don't get to interact with them as much.
So they're going to interact with Charles, huh?
Yeah, well, they'll work with Charles in the morning and Megan on the weekends, and then they'll be around. And, I'll give them my typical, motivational speeches, dull and boring as they might be.
I can tell them about how you treated me on Friday. There's a tropical depression. I'm headed for the Hoover Met. Get something up on the graphics.
Yeah, so I finished all my production and they upgraded that thing to a tropical depression. And again, if I didn't leave that second, I wasn't gonna make it, because you never know with traffic. So my life is never dull.
Well, and what I can't figure out is, where did you get that information? Because I was trying to find a way to update the graphics, and all the data was showing TD2. And for about 20 minutes, there was nothing about Bonnie. And then finally, after you'd left, about 20 minutes later, Bonnie pops up in the data. So I don't know where you got that data, that information.
The tweeters. Got it on the tweeters at the Hurricane Center.
Well, I couldn't find it at the Hurricane Center's website. I couldn't find it on WSI. Or whatever the heck that company is.
Hey man, get on the tweeter, man.
Get on the tweeter. That's what I should have done.
Everything's on the tweeter.
Yep.
All right. So
well, anyway,
looks like all of our guests are here.
I got you your graphics, so I was happy that I was able to do that.
You're a fine American.
Oh yeah.
Let's see, Leslie,
but
can you hear us?
Up later, but that's okay. Who's counting?
Okay, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
She's trying to figure out why she's on this show.
Our advice to our first-time guests: run.
This is not her first time, though. So.
Okay, well, still, no matter who you are, just run.
I tried to warn her.
Welcome to our television audience watching on TV. We are doing the show a day later than usual, and that some of our folks here actually took a holiday. Some of us worked Memorial Day.
Yes.
But some actually have a life and take a day off. People? I have no idea. Jason, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you great.
Oh, yeah. You're good. Perfect. Sounding good? Now we're good. All right, let's get this sucker started here since we are all here.
Wow.
1 minute late. That's not bad for us.
No, we got a full house here,
too. That's like being on time.
Here we go.
Don't laugh. It is.
It's like being early.
Calm down. Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains, the weekly show all about weather, episode number 541 for May 31st. It is a Tuesday night special. The last few fleeting moments of meteorological spring. Thanks a lot for joining us. Got a big session here. Looks like the whole gang is here. And Kevin Selly, what's on your mind? Just say it.
I am tired of spring. I am ready for the ridge.
The death ridge, because you've had too many storms and too many severe weather events and too much flooding, huh?
Well, and you know what's actually more wearying, I think, than actually having severe weather, which we have had, but when it's around you and there's this threat the whole time, and then it doesn't pay off because you get all wound up. And it's like, oh, yeah. The models have been just terrible stuff coming out of the Southwest and in West Texas, and so this may come as a shock to you, but I'm agitated.
I love it. This is when the show gets good.
I'm ready for. We got vacation coming up. I'm ready.
And I hate to do this, but we before we get into this show here, we've got to stop and pause for this message.
We interrupt this program for a CBS Radio Net Alert Bulletin.
From the newsroom inside worldwide headquarters of WeatherBrains International, this is a heat emergency update.
Standby live, standby graphics, standby effects, standby cameras 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Standby HD Superjet Copter 17, microwave truck and satellite feeds locked. Cancel mix minus to talent. We're live in 3, 2, and cue announce.
We go live now to our reporter who is live on the scene.
It's hot. Stay inside, have a drink of water, and get over it.
So since we got the beginning of meteorological summer tomorrow, I thought we'd play that. And we let me just say up front, we are looking for stupid heat tips. If your local television station or anybody runs stupid heat tips, for example, drink some water and go into an air-conditioned room. We would love to collect those, and we're going to come up with the best of the stupid heat tips a little later in the summer. So Kevin, please, if you get any out there in Texas, please let us know. Oh, Kevin.
I'm muted during the thing there. I've got a whole suite of stupid heat tip graphics ready to go for my television station.
Fantastic.
What is Nate doing?
No, I must say, we never had this much bad audio here. We got people clanging and banging, and the audio freaks are going to just gripe at me. But I mute people, and somehow the clanging and banging comes back. So wow, Nate, are you okay? Are you off your meds or what?
I don't know. I may be fighting Kevin for title of the accelerant this week.
Oh, this could be good.
What's on your mind? Just say it.
We do it now or later.
Now, just go.
Go.
Social media annoys me, especially bad social media.
Well, how many years did it take?
Just a minute.
Let's get social. With social media.
So there's been a thing. It turned into a thing last week, and I'm going to go on a bit of a rant. But if you take a picture, if you're a photographer and you take a picture, you post it on Twitter. Wouldn't it be nice if people just retweeted your tweet, or used the quote tweet feature that's there in Twitter that allows you to quote the tweet and then make your comment? But no, that's not good enough. There's some people out there that take the picture from one tweet, save it, and then tweet it as if it was their own. They say, oh, via so-and-so. But they tweet it as their own. So they get the retweets, and they get the likes, and they get the engagement. That's theft, people.
Yeah.
You think it's you think that it's not plagiarism because you're giving credit, and yes, in a way that's true, but that's kind of like taking a book, making a photocopy of it, saying this is the person who authored it, but then selling it yourself. It's theft. Stop it.
Nate, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But I think James has alluded to this, I think, a couple times over the weeks or months or years or whatever it's been. But I find it really interesting that we're in this phase where we're trying to write rules for something that has no rules. Does that make sense?
No, it's a different medium, but it's the same concept at play.
I agree with you. I agree with you on this point.
Who's ever created anything and then have it taken and then reused in another place. Oh, I gave you credit for it, but you didn't give me any of the actual credit in terms of money or engagement. And anymore, in television newsrooms, there are people who are tracking how much engagement tweets get, how much engagement Facebook. Is it right? I don't know, but it's reality. It's the reality that television people are dealing with now. And when you take somebody's content and then you share it from your own account without retweeting or resharing, you are stealing that engagement out from under. You could be costing somebody a job.
All right, so now, Nate, let me ask you this question, since we're talking social media police here.
Right.
What if you're giving credit to an article, and you put the link in your social media in your tweet, and then you actually take their photo and put it on there so that it'll show up with a little more emphasis? Is that the same thing?
That, I think, is fair use. That to me, and Jason's the one that works in the newspaper industry. My sense is that feels like fair use. That feels like I'm using this piece of content. And Facebook, if you think about the way Facebook does it, that's exactly what they do. They will
and in these cases, the original poster hasn't made a tweet anyway that you could retweet. You're giving them credit attribution. You're sending them back to the original article.
Exactly.
So, okay.
But
all right.
the thing that bugs me about this is that people aren't doing that. They're not even using the person's Twitter handle. They're just saying, "Oh, via such and such." And I've seen it, and I posted on a Facebook group last week, and people are like, "Oh, there's somebody who does it." It's not just one person. I've seen a lot of people do it. I've seen news organizations do it.
Wait, I want to hear names.
I'm not a names guy because it's not just one. There's probably half a dozen that I've seen in the last few weeks, including some major news organizations. And the people, you want to watch it when it happens big time, is when somebody on the International Space Station takes a really cool picture and then tweets it. You will see hundreds of people tweeting that picture, and instead of just retweeting the original tweet, it's via ISS astronaut, whatever.
Well, Nate, I think that's an okay case if you do it then, because say, for example, you're writing an article on that particular photograph, you're a news organization and you're writing an article on a photo from the ISS. It's public domain. I think a public domain image is a separate case. I think that's okay. But I do agree with you when it's an individual, a photographer whose work you're just downloading and then reposting with a credit. I don't think that's right. Unless there is an exception to this. I think unless you're given permission from that photographer to retweet it from your account. And there are cases where you can do that.
Yeah, and in some cases, a couple of cases and the one or two that really prompted this rant last week, I know for a fact that permission was not given because I know the people who originally tweeted the content.
Here's the sleazeballs that worry me. It's these guys that actually rip YouTube videos and they put it on their own YouTube account, and they have these funky names like Ezra or Meteo Reporter, and they'll put me and Cantori and probably people like Jason on there trying to get us to drive people to their account. Now that's just total sleaze right there. When you're ripping YouTube videos. But ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that does conclude our social media report for this week.
Wait. Oh! That's not. But here, I mean, we're going on a good discussion. I have to go in a minute, obviously, do these shows, but I agree with all the points. It's a sign of the chaos that is out there. But so where do we go? Are we going to stop it? No, absolutely not. What are we going to do to fix this? We would look to the AMS or the NWA or both or NOAA, but they have no authority. What's going to stop?
I vote Kevin Selly, social media sheriff.
Czar.
That's even more powerful. I like it.
If I was in that position, how many people on Facebook? 1.5 billion people would disappear instantly from the face of the planet.
Well, like I said last week.
Would you play them a vuvuzela as you sent them away, Kevin?
Yes.
I was thinking about that the other day. It's like, how far we've come that when I joined the show a couple 3 years ago, it was all audio, and then we started doing this and the video piece, and now the video piece, there's still far more audio listeners than there are video watchers, but you're not blowing vuvuzelas when we're screen sharing anymore. It's like the sign of the time.
So real quick, we got to get our guest on here, and I want if we have time tonight, Nate. I love what Fischel put on this broadcast meteorologist.
We need to talk about that, and I want to talk about that with Jason on the show because I want to hear what he's got to say about it.
Yeah, that I love what Fischel wrote over there, but again, we got business to do here. Aubrey Urbanowitz. Aubrey, I see your picture. Are you there? Hello.
Yeah. Can you guys see me?
Yes, you look good now. You were loud and clear and looking good.
But no, I was just commenting on social media. On the air, like I said, was it last week or the week before? We have to have permission from absolutely everyone. You have to upload your photo through the website for us to actually show it on air from even something that someone posts to our public Facebook page. They have to resubmit through our website and check a box giving us legal permission to use. So.
And my head would explode. I just grab stuff as it comes. People tweet me these pictures, and I'll put it on the air. And at some point I'll probably get arrested or whatever by the social media police. But so far so good. Brian Peters, where do you stand in all this? You seem.
I have a different rant.
Go.
Yeah. And I've had this rant since 1984.
Wow.
It's Hurricane Alicia. I don't know what it is. I just don't know what it is about the people.
Go on, Brian. Tell us. I've had this rant since before you were in diapers.
Do what?
I've had this rant since you were in diapers.
Yes. I don't know what it is about the guys and gals at the National Hurricane Center. I have the greatest respect for them, but they can't seem to put out a statement without a correction. And it's like deja vu all over again. In 1984, I was in Galveston in Hurricane Alicia, and we had to resend so many different statements because they had to post corrections. And now with Bonnie, I'm seeing it all over again. I swear that in the last since Bonnie became a storm, I've seen like 5 or 6 different corrections. And it's
Brian?
That's what?
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
I have a correction.
Uh-oh.
Hurricane Alicia in 1983.
Oh, okay. Well, 1983. Oh, whatever the heck year it was. I've had this rant for a long time. It just seems to me in the days, with all the computers and everything they have there, they can get it right the first time. That's a lack of proofreading or something. I don't know what.
Let's go to Rick Smith and see what he wants to rant about tonight. Rick, what's on your mind?
Go, Rick!
I have a reverse rant. I am happy tonight that there is a storm chaser controversy on social media, and I have nothing to do with it.
Not yet. Just wait, Rick.
No, wait. So tell us about this now. I've not heard of a new controversy. So what's the story?
I'm scared to talk about it because
You'll be a part
I
of
think
it.
there's I think Eric Holthouse with Slate wrote a article today, which, by the way, May 31st today, when we're recording this, is the 3-year anniversary of the El Reno tornado, where we lost the storm chasers tragically. And so there's an article that came out today basically saying storm chasers have no business being on the roads and that they should stop doing what they're doing. So needless to say, there's some heat coming headed toward Eric's direction today.
Wow.
But I have nothing to do with it, so I'm happily staying out of it.
How can we somehow get Rick involved in this?
You cannot. You could, but
well, he's the one that brought it up, so he's automatically involved in it. So,
well, yeah,
Jason,
you're right.
Jason, have you seen this yet?
Yeah, I have seen it, and I didn't agree with it. Thought Eric went too far. He sometimes does that. I'm a fan of Eric. He's a friend of mine, but I think he sometimes takes provocative positions just for the heck of it, and I think this is a case of that.
I thought so too, by the way. I
just think it's a radical perspective. I mean, people are going to chase. Plenty of people chase responsibly. And he compares it. He says it's more irresponsible than skydiving or other daredevil activities. And frankly, storm chasing is a lot safer than a lot of these high risk activities. And I frankly don't. I think it's just an extreme perspective. That was my quick take on it.
Besides, why in God's name would you jump out of a perfectly good airplane?
All right, so and we could talk about this too. And by the way, Rick, I don't see your video tonight. Are you in some secret location where we can't see you?
Because I knew I was going to talk about the storm chaser thing.
Good idea.
Undisclosed location.
And
we were
busy. You have been very busy here in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, and a little bit busy today. We had a surprise little miniature land spout, I think, outbreak just southwest of Oklahoma City that generated quite a bit of excitement this afternoon. And I was actually home during it. The reason I'm not on the full video thing here is we've been doing some work around the house, and my Wi-Fi is not acting correctly. So I'm trying to conserve bandwidth and just do the audio only tonight. But yeah, it's been quite busy, and like Kevin said, it doesn't really matter if it's busy where you are or if it's even busy in your county warning area. If it's going to be busy or could be busy, that's, as I think you'd all agree, it's more exhausting waiting for something or expecting or anticipating something than it is just going ahead and having the event. So it's been a long few weeks, but I'm not quite to the point of wishing for the death ridge. I don't think I could ever wish for that, but it'll be here soon enough.
Yeah, we're getting a taste of it down here, so trust me, it will happen sooner or later. But Bill Murray, bring in our guest, please, before they totally run on us.
Yeah, James. Tonight's guest panelist, because everybody's screaming for guest panelists again, is the founder of the Capital Weather Gang. That weather blog that started in 2004 was absorbed by the Washington Post in 2008. He's currently the weather editor for the Post. Jason Samenow, welcome to the show.
Great to be back on, guys. It's a pleasure.
You understand the cover charge tonight is you have to bring a rant. So what's your rant?
Gosh. I don't have a rant off the top of my head. I guess I wrote today about some Facebook comments from Texas. People complaining that the Weather Service was using the term Habub, and basically saying in Texas we call them sandstorms and dust storms, and how dare you, National Weather Service, refer to these phenomenon using Arabic language. And it's just, these folks are prejudiced and don't understand that the word Habub has been in the meteorological literature for decades. And so we wrote a little piece about that. I don't know if it's a rant. I mean, people have written about this before. But it happened again Sunday, a Habub, dust storm, whatever you want to call it, came through Lubbock, and people on Facebook flipped out when the Weather Service referred to it by its technical, more ethnically originated terminology. So that is what I got for you today.
Well, that's good enough for us, and a great, and that made me think of J.B. Elliott, our old associate who passed away not too long ago, and just made me think of him when you wrote about that today. So, but we're glad you're here. You're officially designated a guest panelist, Jason. We got a great guest weather brain tonight, so please jump in and ask lots of questions, and we want to talk to you after the recorded segments in more detail tonight. So thanks for being with us.
You bet. Thank you.
So tonight's guest weather brain is the president and CEO of the Federal Alliance for Safe Homes, Leslie Chapman Henderson. You didn't know you'd have a 40-minute wait in the green room, but welcome to Weather Brain.
It was worth it. Fun hearing you guys.
Well, we're sure glad you're here, Leslie. Of course, tomorrow is the start of hurricane season in the North Atlantic, and so talk to us for a minute about what it means to be hurricane strong.
Well, hurricane strong, we were sitting around last year lamenting. We were having some professional jealousy, actually. We're talking about the earthquake community and how they have a global earthquake exercise every year in October called the Great Shakeout. And all of us were sitting around saying, yeah, we can't really do that with hurricanes because there's just too much to tell. It's not about drop cover and hold on under a table. It's all these different things you need to do. So we decided that we would take it on and come up with something that could unify the universe of hurricane preparedness, readiness, resilience, whatever you want to call it, under this mantra, Hurricane Strong, doing it through Twitter, and then coming up and brokering the calendar for hurricane resilience, brokering the messaging, and getting all the voices, NOAA, FEMA, the insurance industry, the Home Depots, and others to get on message together. And we've done it. We came up with the 5 calls to action. Know your zone, which brings about all the safety pieces. The second message is get an insurance checkup, and don't forget flood insurance, because you have a 30-day waiting period on flood, and it's not part of your normal insurance. And too many people figure that out after the hurricane or 10 days before the hurricane when it's just too late to get it. So the third message is the one that you've heard a lot before, which is assemble your kit. The fourth message is strengthen your home. And then the fifth message is, okay, now that you're ready, figure out who you can help. And, help your neighbor and become of service to your elderly or other kind of access and functional needs people out there. So we spent a year. We got the National Hurricane Preparedness Week declaration moved back, because it always tees up to June 1st, which made a little sense, except that the school kids are in many places out of school. So the NOAA Hurricane Awareness Tour, which we just wrapped up 2 weeks ago, was a different week. So we got the Presidential Week, the Hurricane Awareness Tour, 700 workshops at Home Depot, and all these activities to converge into one intense week-long period, and see if we could turn the volume up on getting people ready and generating more attention to this call to arms for the season. And so far, so good. The numbers are great. We love that we haven't had a big hurricane hit, but we don't get the advantage. The only plus out of the hurricane activities, it does remind the public to get out there and get ready. And with about 11 years now, a bit of a dearth of landfalling storms, at least on the Atlantic side, we have young adults who have never prepared for a hurricane. They don't have the first idea of how and where to do that. So Hurricane Strong, if you look on Twitter, you'll see a lot of commentary. People are hashtagging with it. That's what we want. We did, as we had hoped, to lose complete control of the hashtag on the first day. And now everybody's using it, but that was the whole idea. We want people to tell us what their definition of Hurricane Strong is, and then help the public understand, okay, now's the time. It would be great if people were ready year-round for any kind of disaster, but we got to take the seasonal approach and use it, and that's what we're doing.
So Leslie, as we go into hurricane season, talk about some ways that homeowners can make their homes more resilient. What are some questions that home buyers and home builders need to ask their contractors as we go into this part of the year?
So not the exciting part, where'd you get this granite? How about my stainless steel appliances? But we want, we want the homeowner to become curious about the really, technical, not so exciting piece, which is what building code did you use to construct this, my home? Was it during the modern era when windborne debris considerations were factored in for hurricane shutters? Hey, did you guys use the more, metal connectors, or did you just tap in some toenails, at those joints? Those fundamentals, like the day that the home was permitted, will tell you a lot about the era of the building code. And then, of course, we can help homeowners understand some places have building codes, not to pick on you, Bill, but Alabama just got a residential building code in the last 5 years. Unfortunately, it's not mandatory. It's voluntary enforcement. So, a lot of places you can tell by your zip code if your home is automatically stronger just by the building code, and that's the first thing people should ask. And then just looking at the house, if you don't know about the building code, or once you figure that out, do you have opening protection? If you're along the coastline or near the coastline, you need something to protect for windborne debris. That's windows, doors, garage doors, even your vents, on the attic walls. So we have all kinds of checklists and information. We have videos, we have animations, we have lengthy, short. We even have a new whiteboard video that takes you through the whole thing in about 3 minutes. All of the content's up at hurricanestrong.org, and the National Hurricane Center has our stuff up there too. That was part of this new collaboration, is get everybody sharing each other's information, because we need to give the public one-stop shopping. They can't go get the preparedness piece and the kit piece from the Red Cross and then come over to us for the house piece and go to the Hurricane Center for the evacuation zone piece. We need to give them all this stuff in one place that they can trust the content and then ask their questions. And that's what we're trying to do. I think we're doing pretty well with it. We did have a silly element to this, and in this audience, I'm a little, I don't even know if I want to tell you guys what we did to make this really work on social media, and I see you doing the post. So, okay,
I was going to ask you about the post, Leslie, so that's perfect.
All right. Well, let me just tell you. Understanding that kids under 11 don't even know about getting ready for a hurricane, we realized sometimes the kids are the best way to get the parents. So it was actually Dr. Rick Knabb, our director of the National Hurricane Center, who does have a young son, who came up with the idea. And we were at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. We're having a dinner, and I think that they were hanging out by the Heisman Trophy statue too much, because this idea came up the next morning that we should come up with a pose so we could get people to pose and post their picture doing the Hurricane Strong pose on social media. And that part has definitely gotten beyond our control, and we all I've spent my time pointing out to people is that we're in the Atlantic, in the northern hemisphere, so the pose, is this way, because it's the hurricane symbol, and then you show that you're strong, right? Yet, we keep seeing the cyclone pose. Some people are getting it backwards, but that, again, just becomes something fun to talk about, and even with the kids who seem to get it right, it's not always the kids that, get it backwards. But
Well,
again, just, getting that and moving down the road.
Who get it backwards, Leslie. Yeah. That's all. Right, Kevin? Oh, Kevin's probably gone. Yeah. Anyway, Kevin would appreciate that joke, because on the Inconvenient Truth movie, cyclone was spinning the wrong way for the northern hemisphere, so they get it wrong.
Only Al Gore could make that kind of mistake.
Exactly. we're venturing into climate change there. Sorry, James.
I didn't say climate change.
Well, I think Nate's pick may already cover that. So anyway, Leslie, one of the cool things I think on your website is the Blueprint for Safety and the newsletters there. They are spectacular. Talk about the Blueprint for Safety program.
Oh, thanks. Well, when we started out, we were just a committee of volunteers after Hurricane Andrew in '92. All of us had other things we were getting paid to do, but we kept coming together and talking about this. How do we get it? Build it back better, or maybe even build it better the first time. And we started with just families and consumers. We raised all this awareness and immediately figured out that that wasn't enough. that we had to work with builders because they said, hey, they either said, I don't know where to get that garage door that has the great supports on it, or I don't know how to build, that tornado safe, for example. So we came up with Blueprint for Safety as a training and education program, and today, after 18 years, we've taught versions and iterations of Blueprint for Safety for, we have the accredited stuff for the architects and the engineers and the builders, but we've made different versions of it applicable for every, middle school STEM curriculum. We worked with the national troupe of teachers to put it in that format, and then, whatever audience we're trying to tackle, we want them to understand that, the big thing to us is that people love weather. And in some ways, they also surrender to weather, right? It's just like, there's nothing I can do about it. And our whole point with programs like Blueprint for Safety is you absolutely can survive the weather, and you can build to survive the weather, and you can do it affordably. So Blueprint for Safety is our effort to do that. And just last week, one of our guys, our engineer, was up in the National VOAD, was together, and all those faith-based groups that go out and build and rebuild, and we've got a Blueprint for Safety class for them too. They do a huge amount of construction in the U.S. every year, and they spend decades sometimes rebuilding after major disasters. So it's a great program. Thanks for asking about it.
Now, you mentioned Alabama and the building codes, but the Florida building codes came under attack recently too. What came of that, Leslie?
Well, and this is, it's actually something we're going to talk with our corporate and industry partners this summer, because we're sitting there, it's about 10 days before the end of the 60-day Florida session, and I get a late night email. Basically, it was a flare sent up by somebody from the code community who was watching the Florida building code, which is our national standard. We always hail the Florida code as the best high wind code in the country, right? And somebody very quietly at 10 at night snuck a little amendment into someone else's hands to take the Florida building code and extend and stretch out the update cycle. So the model codes are updated with new findings, science, post-disaster, failure patterns, whatever, every 3 years. And somebody decided to slow that train down so we could inhibit progress in Florida. And they were going to stretch it out to 6 years, which North Carolina has already done, by the way. Minnesota has stretched themselves out to 9 years. This is planned obsolescence as far as we're concerned, and a really bad thing to do. So we kind of put the word out, and everybody rallied, and we made public noise about it, and all of a sudden the amendment went away and the effort died. But that the fact that any credible leader in the state of Florida from the southeast part of Florida with our hurricane history would even consider delaying updating our building code tells us that the hurricane amnesia case that we're suffering from has reached epic levels. And there's, we have to, and it was part of our, it just validated for us what we decided we needed to do with Hurricane Strong, to just really turn up the volume about this hurricane issue, because when Florida's ready to, weaken their code just by stalling it, we're in big trouble, And the legislator that did it was a builder from South Florida, so go figure, No names mentioned.
There's Leslie's rant for tonight, so we're glad you brought one with us. So glad to offer that one up for you. As we get into hurricane season here, what are some of the myths that you run into frequently in the hurricane lexicon that you have to battle, Leslie?
Well, one is the we have some very serious things we do. We also have some very silly things we do, and we are the ones that put out the Go Tapeless campaign several years ago that also went viral. And we did that because people in the early 70s, the Hurricane Center put out a brochure that said, put masking tape on the glass to keep it from shattering, and this would be a great way to protect yourself from a hurricane. Not so any longer. Our glass is better, it's tempered, but also the better thing to do is just board up those windows or buy impact-resistant glass or get shutters. So people are still putting up masking tape. It's not only a waste of time, in very few cases, in one case in particular, in Hurricane Charlie, very thin solar film caused a death because the glass shard was so large that it actually cut the guy's femoral artery. He thought he was safe. He was standing behind the slider covered in this stuff. So go tapeless, forget the masking tape, get your boarding planned up or get your shutters. The other one is cracking open the windows. People actually start hitting our hotline and emailing us and posting to us, how far should I crack open my windows? My wife says halfway.
Oh, gosh. From tornadoes from like 40 years ago.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you know, just the one I mentioned at the top, the flood insurance, that's the worst because people think, well, wait a minute, I have insurance. They don't realize they don't have flood insurance unless they buy that extra policy. So those are some of the persistent things that we come across that we help people try to, you know, set it straight. We actually mediate disputes sometimes between couples on how far to crack the windows, and we say, you're both wrong.
Now, you were on the Hurricane Awareness Tour a couple of weeks ago, and they stopped in New Orleans, and of course we've all been holding our breath since 2005 for New Orleans. How ready do you think they are for the next one?
Well, you know, we had a long conversation there. We had the mayor with us, and we talked to Mark Schleifstein from the Times-Picayune, and you know, they've done so much work on the, you know, with the levees and the 100-year levels, and you know, he asked me, he goes, so is it enough? I said, well, 100-year flood is your first, you know, that's the first base, and then you're just going to have to keep going. You're never done. You know, you really can't afford to ever not go after that 200-year flood, or even, you know, someday the 500-year. I know I'm you know, extreme, but I think that they're very focused in New Orleans. From the conversations we had throughout the week, they are talking very clearly about evacuation. They're talking, Craig Fugate was with us for that stop and the Naples stop, and they're talking about evacuation and hitting those messages very hard. They're very nervous about how long it's been as well. So I think they've probably vastly improved their preparedness across the board. Is anything ever enough? No, because that's why it's a disaster. But they've come a long way, and I think they're intensely focused there. Everything that the mayor talked about, and just looking at the turnout in New Orleans was crazy. We had 1,000 people come for the public. You know, the hat tour starts in the morning with school kids, and then we have all the electeds and such. And then in the afternoon, it's open to the public. There was an onslaught in New Orleans of people that came out. We even had a Mardi Gras crew called the Amelia Earharts show up in their very red short-skirted uniforms, and they marched in with their high heels on and joined the Hurricane Awareness Tour. So it's very interesting. If you look at my Facebook album, you will just about die. We made the pilots of the G4 pose with them. So
that's Brian's pick of the week, Leslie. So that's perfect. So Leslie, obviously resiliency is a huge part of what Flash is talking about, and you recently commented on metrics. What are some of the metrics that we should be looking at to determine how much more resilient we're making our populations?
Well, you know, and we look at more than just hurricanes. So one of the ways that we measure is, you know, pretty basic. We look at the products and services that fulfill the physical safety and resiliency. One of my favorite things to look at is the tornado safe room and shelter industry in the post-2011 era. You know, again, it's the same problem with every kind of hazard. People think they're helpless and there's nothing they can do, but what we were able to help people understand is you don't have to die in a tornado, that there are ways to become safe in an ICC 500 certified or a safe from constructed to FEMA guidance. Even above ground, you can survive. So I think that's a measure of resiliency that marketplace has really expanded. You can buy a tornado shelter now on HomeDepot.com. The prices are going down, and people are aware. We had City Councilman Kavanaugh with us last week in Kansas City for a tornado workshop, and he said people in Moore, Oklahoma won't buy a house without a shelter or a safe room, or what they call in Oklahoma a fraidy hole, right? So I think that's a really important measure of it. I think building codes are another. We are making progress on codes. We still like to, point out some of the problems, like Memphis, which is in the, right by the New Madrid seismic zone, yet they're trying hard to preserve their 19 years behind codes and fighting us tooth and nail there. But building codes, the products and services, we do a lot of social science research and we talk to people. We're only as good with the public awareness as recent memory or epic memories, right? So that's a big challenge still. We have to help people understand. And we've learned what not to do, Bill. You cannot scare people into the right behavior about getting ready. And we've learned, we work with Disney, we're in Disney, have been for 8 years. We've learned a lot about how messaging and outreach that focuses on empowering people, making them feel like they can make a difference, is the only thing that does work. So those are some of the ways that we look at, progress over time. We're constructively impatient. We'll never be satisfied, but we are making progress.
Yeah, Leslie, your organization or you personally or someone wrote a paper called The Intersection of Resilience, Big Data, and the Internet of Things in a Changing Insurance Marketplace. And that sounds like a great English paper for some junior in high school somewhere. But I mean, that's really fascinating. So talk about how you tied those three elements together and related it to insurance.
So Audrey and I wrote that last year for a global conference on reinsurance, and they asked us to be thinking about the future, and they brought us to Australia to present it. So we start thinking about the future and looking at resilience, and today, we're working, NIST, all of us are working on measuring resilience and all these things, but looking out ahead and with our futurist hat on, the smart home industry, Cisco's putting the price tag on that industry within the next 7 to 10 years at conservatively $19 trillion. And we said, okay. So $19 trillion is the hottest ticket at Consumer Electronics Show. Everything, we have Google Nest and all these sensors have become very affordable. So what can we do with smart home technology and leverage that into the resilient smart home of the future, which is what you see in the paper we did the illustrations about. So for example, where there's research now, they're popping sensors into bridges to gauge bridge health, and they collect the data just by flying a drone past the sensor. And we have partners that are using new software and using spiders to put up on a roof to gather data on hail damage of roof shingles. So what we started doing is taking what we knew was happening and then imagining the future in the resilient smart home. In vehicles, telematics are taking hold. Now you can get usage-based insurance where it just figures out doesn't have actuarial science to guess what you might have happen based on how much you might drive. You actually get mileage, braking behavior, and other things. So looking at your house, you put those same sensors in your house, you can calculate the stress delivered by a high wind event. And even if there's no damage, you could calculate how much weakness has been baked into your roof system. So we looked at that. The insurance marketplace in the U.S. is kind of interesting because it's under the expectation that within the next 20 years it's going to really change and fade. I mean, think about it. With Uber and other kinds of things, people aren't driving as much. Some of our new generation, they're not even buying cars. Then there's driverless cars coming. So that industry is going to have to change, and they're going to be looking at different ways to insure and offer products. So that was a really fun paper because we got to just project some things. And what was interesting, I think there were 64 countries there when we presented it, and a lot of people came up to me and said, oh gosh, your future vision is something we're actually testing very quietly. So we've been able to go on and start working with some of those people and talking about how to bring those products through. think of your smart, resilient, safe room in your house that basically has a command center where you can control and identify information, and it's all automated. You know, the washing machine today that can order its own hose replacement parts. You know, it's crazy. The caution on that whole piece, though, is that industry is expected to max out within the next 10 years. So we want the resilience universe to get with it before we miss out, you know.
So you mean we will have IoT'd everything we have known to man by that time and within 10 years, Leslie?
Well, no, I think they think that the product opportunities will have maxed out by then. If you're not in, say you're a person that wants to be in that universe and offer those products or services, if you're not getting in now, you better hurry because the space will be completely taken up.
Well, I knew when I went to buy a smoker for Memorial Day and it was connected to the internet that I knew that it probably was getting saturated. So I see what you mean. So, talk about the Obama administration and how they've helped this year with your efforts, Leslie.
Well, I got to tell you, if you guys recall, if you followed policy over the years, and I guess I'm 18 years. Flash is 18 years old. I was the first employee. Mitigation, the word disappeared for a while from the policy lexicon altogether. It just automatically became an inferior consideration. This administration has smartly figured out that there's an intersection. When you use the word resilience, there are two different kinds that are prioritized there. One is climate, and the other is disaster resilience. Our disaster resilience movement has always been a little bit like, you know, the also ran in terms, you know, building codes have just never been the most exciting topic, and we've been, you know, screeching about building codes for years. People are like, oh, you know. But this administration has actually hosted a conversation, acknowledged the importance of building codes, and one thing that we had written about for a while was, while we're calling for strong building codes, we asked our federal government partners, what are we walking the talk? Are federal buildings compliant with codes? We had this ongoing challenge in Memphis where we've been talking about seismic codes. What about federal buildings? So they've come through a wave of standards focused on seismic. There's now a wildfire standard. It's not very far-reaching, but it's a very strong starting point. And looking at, okay, if you're going to rebuild a federal building or build a federal building or retrofit it to a certain percentage, you really need to bring it into current model codes. That may not sound like a big deal. It's a very hard and expensive thing to do, but if we expect the private sector to do it and we're supporting strong building codes, they're walking the talk. And they've also used the pulpit to support disaster resilience. Another really important area is with tornado safe rooms. You know, there's this whole cost-benefit analysis for FEMA, you know, funding to build safe rooms. Everyone's heart is in the right place, but it's very difficult, tons of red tape to get to that money, and they found a way to create a credible access for communities to that money so they could put safe rooms at community shelters and schools. I think it's time, and I think our president and Craig Fugate and others have decreed if we have schools in high, you know, risk tornado zones, we need to have shelters. So again, it sounds like stuff that should have happened a long time ago, but for whatever reason it hadn't, and this administration has really stepped up to do those things.
You mentioned Memphis and the new Madrid quake zone. How vulnerable are cities like St. Louis and Memphis right now, Leslie? That's really frightening.
Oh, they're very vulnerable, and what's interesting, and by the way, I'm not sure I'm allowed to go to Memphis. I've written about it so much, and I think the mayor, I think I have a nickname there. It's that blonde woman. You know, they talk about it because we keep pointing out Memphis has a little problem. They had one of these national level exercises in Memphis. I think it was in 2011. and they talked about the earthquake scenario and the New Madrid fault, the 1812, etc. It's a real thing, okay? And the expectation is for massive damage there, not if, but when it happens again, right? And so they had a national level exercise, and the community of Memphis and the central U.S. consortia came together and said, we're vulnerable, we have an aging infrastructure, our bridges, we have unreinforced masonry construction, so we need all this federal money. And they received millions of dollars to address the problem. The one thing that Memphis Shelby County has within their power to do to protect their citizens from seismic events, and we're not talking saving the structure, we're talking about crumple zones so that they don't die, is to put in the building code. And the building code there was 19 years behind. It was, lagging like Florida was trying to do. So there was a lot of, we were asked to write about it because we're kind of Switzerland. We have such a diverse group that we're no one interest group. They did enact the modern code in 2012, commercial and residential. Then they proceeded to weaken the residential code a couple times. So it's better, but it's not ideal. St. Louis, I think, is a little bit more proactive, and they're not in denial about the threat they face. There's one professor out there who has declared the New Madrid fault dead. So, I don't know how you do that, but he certainly is the lone voice saying that fault is not going to generate any kind of seismic activity. And we'll see. And he was advocating for on behalf of those that don't want building codes. Let's put it that way. Just the one guy. So.
Follow the money. Jason, you had a question for Leslie. You may be muted. You may be muted, Jason.
Looks like it.
No, I'm not. I think I'm here now. Ed Maybeck, he's a professor of communication at George Mason University. He says if you want people to do something, to take action, you should try to make the action easy, popular, and fun. Those three characteristics: easy, popular, fun. And fortifying your house, not really any of those. I mean, when you think, just bringing a plumber to your house is $100. It's a pain. You've got to schedule them, and bringing contractors in. I mean, this is not a particularly trivial exercise. It's really important, but how do you motivate people to actually do the right thing, especially if they have an older home which may not be up to code? Have you studied some of the social psychology? I mean, I know you all are working on messaging and you're looking at the social science, but what have you found is effective to get people to change their behavior and actually take action?
Well, we have a project inside Epcot. It's about a 3,000 square foot, what Disney calls edutainment or experience. It's called Stormstruck, A Tale of Two Homes. It's very, very popular. It's a 3D, 4D storm experience with the glasses, and it's game-based. You play a game. You get a big old storm. It stops in the middle, and then you play a game, and answer 8 questions. You play against the rest of the audience to make these choices about roof shape and door swing orientation and some of the, to your point, not as exciting things about strengthening your home. So for years we've had the #1 attendance in that part of Epcot because it's fun and people love weather and you get to sit down when it's hot outside and it's air conditioned and all these reasons. We have record attendance there. But for years people said, well, that's great, but what's the efficacy? So 18 months ago, we hooked up with Carnegie Mellon because they have an incredible pedigree, as you know, in risk communication and social science. And we said, okay, we're afraid of the answer, but we're going to plunge. And they did a study for us, and they came in and interviewed guests for a couple days, and then did a 12 months later, no contact in between, and resurveyed them. And what they found was surprising to them, not to Disney. It was validating for us. And what they found is that 74% of the people they retested recalled the information, and 57% had actually done something meaningful, bought a generator, talked to a contractor, put something in their re-roofing job. And one of the pieces, and we'd like to do additional research, but one of the conclusions that the postdocs made was that it was this empowerment thing. You know, we talk a lot about social norming. People want to do what they think everyone else is doing. And so when the social norming came with empowerment, oh, okay, so there are some things I can do. You know, next time I get a roof, I'll get the stronger shingle and I'll put in a handful more of nails, or I'll ask my contractor to put that other underlayment on there. Just giving them those, you know, kind of bite-sized steps by hazard is how we have to tackle it. You know, I worked in highway safety years ago, and I was working on getting people to click their seatbelt, which was still hard. But this stuff, to your point, is very complicated, so you have to break it down. And as I tell my science partners all the time, perfect is the enemy of good. You know, when people are looking at their home, it's going to be a progressive pursuit. So if you're re-roofing, here are the things to do then. We're not going to tell them rip off your roof, because that's just not going to happen. But in places like Texas, where they have an average new roof every 7 years because of hail, what we do is we get our information into their hands at those significant moments. And it's timing. We like to run on what FEMA calls peacetime, wartime. Peacetime is embedding the information in those decision points when it's relevant. You know, wartime communication is, okay, we've had an outbreak of deadly tornadoes. The rest of the country is watching, and they're saying, what if that happened to me, what do I do? And that's how we move the needle on shelters and safe rooms, is debunking the myth that there's nothing you can do to protect yourself in a tornado. And the tornado one is really getting exciting, because now we're working on debunking the myth that you can't affordably build to withstand a tornado. Considering most tornadoes are not 4s and 5s, you absolutely can. So it's just finding those opportunities and then making sure the information is actionable and empowering, and that's what Carnegie Mellon validated, and we were kind of thrilled / relieved. You know, we knew that Stormstruck was a big success from popularity, but as it turns out, it's actually helping people know what to do too.
So Leslie, can you bring a portable version of that to Norfolk for the Weatherfest on September 10th for the National Weather Association?
Oh, he's putting me on the spot.
There you
I don't
go.
know. I don't know. We actually, we're getting ready to go to 2.0 with Disney and our relationship with them, and we're actually in the Imagineering phase of all of that right now. And I think that that's what it looks like, is something that can go beyond the parks. You know, because it's just such a great way to tell the story.
Well, if you can just, if you repurpose the version 1.0 before September 10th, we'll take it. So, you know, there have been lots of high-profile flooding events lately. You know, again, you know, just Sunday, the I-95 is closed in South Carolina, you know, because of flooding. We had 17.5 inches of rain at my hotel in Conroe, Texas, on Thursday night and Friday morning. Talk about, you know, flooding and what are some small things people can do in their homes, as Jason was referring to.
Well, you know, we worked with the Weather Service. It's been 12 years since we came up with Turn Around, Don't Drown, and as an aside, on a life safety front, I'm a little frustrated. And we're talking about some things we need to kind of double down on that messaging. We also need to look at the social science there. I wonder if people seeing all these people not turning around is working against us there. So we're actually hoping to get some research on that front and maybe then work with the broadcast community on that front. As far as around the home, remember, 4 inches is going to cost about $23,000 in damage because of flooring and electrical and such. So anything that lifts, if you're in a repeat flood zone, make the investment, call your electrician, lift up your plugs, you know, or washer and dryer. Most of us have them on pedestals anymore. Lift that stuff up, store your valuables, or have a good plan for getting them up onto the second floor. We also talk to and work with a lot of landscape folks about just water flow around the home.
Mm-hmm.
There's some basics, you know, we tell people, ordinary thunderstorm, go outside and see where the water's going. If it's ponding at your foundation, you don't need to have a flood to have that disaster. We all know what can happen there. But we have great animations on flooding. and there's a lot of good information there. I'm just really frustrated about the loss of life, first to those victims who make a choice that puts themselves in harm's way when that happens, but also to the responders. You know, we're trying to work on that appeal. Maybe people won't turn around and drown for their own sake, but if we can make sure they understand what they're doing is they're creating risk and hazard for those first responders too. Maybe they'll think twice.
So Leslie, we've talked about a lot of weather-related and seismic-related things. What about space weather and the vulnerability of the electrical grid? Does Flash get into that at all?
Yeah, we're actually working. We have a new product line we're doing for FEMA, the Ready Business Workshops, and we just did the first one on tornado. We had 90 companies with us in Olathe, Kansas City, Greater Kansas City last week. We have a power outage workshop product coming out in October. We'll have our first one in New York City, and boy, is that interesting. That's just not something that's been worked on too much, and I think that risk is bigger and more transcendent than all the others combined because all the hazards bring it, and then of course you have the old age of the infrastructure risk, and then there's the whole cyber piece. So that one is that is testing us, but we're up for the challenge.
Yeah, don't get James started about the cyber piece because we've been victims of malware around here lately.
Yeah, it's been a struggle today, but let's take a quick break here, and we're going to roll Professor Peters and the Tony Rice Astronomy Report. We'll come back with Weather Roundup, Picks of the Week, and much more as WeatherBrains. Uh-oh, you know what I forgot to do? I totally forgot to drop in the audio elements. Wow. So let's do this real quick. No, this is I totally fouled up. Usually I do my show prep and I'm ready to go here.
We even gave you an extra day.
Yeah. So Nate, let's talk about Fischl's piece real quick. Shifting gears here. This is a private forum, so you know him better than me. So.
This is something he will tell anybody with 2 ears or even just 1 ear and 15 minutes. It's something that we've really been trying to figure out for a long time. So the science of meteorology is really moving toward probabilistic forecasting. You know, getting away from this idea that a week out I can tell you that it's going to be mostly sunny with only 1/8 coverage of cloud cover, with a high of 85 and a low of 65, and there'll be 13 minutes of rain at some point during the afternoon. The problem is, we're shifting away from that. We're going to more probabilistic thing. The problem is we've been telling people that we can deliver on that deterministic forecast for many years, and we can't. And now apps are doing it for us. You think about the standard iPhone app, and if you pull out the default app and you click on weather, you're going to get an icon, a high and a low for the next 7 days. And that's it. The 7-day forecast is a victim of its own success, because for a long time that was, consultants were, let's put it at the beginning of the weathercast, or let's interact with it, or let's do this other stuff, to the point now where people don't want to see anything but that, and they think that by seeing the 7-day forecast, they've seen everything there is to see. The genesis of Fischl's rant this week was an email that I got after working Saturday, Sunday, and Monday morning with a landfalling tropical storm just south of here. And for 3 or 4 days leading up to it, yes, there's going to be rain. It's going to rain on your Memorial Day weekend here and at the beach. It is not going to be a washout, though. I remember saying that many times. And I got an email saying another bad weather report, and a lot of people canceled their plans because of your forecast. And I pressed him and I said, what? What exactly can you point to? I feel like, we'll take our lumps. And if anybody's watched WRAL, we are not bashful about taking our lumps when we blow it. And we do blow it, and we take our lumps and we learn from it and we move on. But in this case, actually, the weather played out pretty well as forecast. It's rare that we get to say that, quite frankly, but that's exactly how things worked out. And so Fisch went on a rant, and how do we get people to pay attention to more than just an icon, a high and a low? Because otherwise, they're going to keep canceling their plans, and they're going to keep blaming us for it, even though the forecast is good. And Brad Panovich went on a rant on this rant on his blog on wxbrad.com, and that's worth reading as well. He had plans in Charleston, South Carolina. He kept them, and they had, I think, 3/4 of the hours they were there were sunny and dry. He had a great time at the beach, in spite of the landfalling tropical system. So what's the future of weather? I mean, what's the future of doing weather on TV? Is there a future of doing weather? And if so, how can we do it in a way that is true to the science and what we are capable of doing and doesn't oversell, but at the same time doesn't drive people away with information that they clearly don't want?
And people that listen to this show are going to dig deep. That they are going to, go to blogs and read discussions and watch videos. This is, we're talking to people here that are weather fanatics, but we're talking about Joe Q Public, and we're all fighting this. I hear some of these TV guys, and they're all pumped up. Well, people always watch me on the 11 o'clock news, eyewitness news, and no, they're looking at their phone. Come get real. They're looking at their phone. I don't care who you are, how good you are. They're going to get their weather on their phone, and like everybody's saying here, they're going to get basically a little picture that's going to show a sun and a lightning bolt, or a big lightning bolt, or a cloud and some raindrops, and then 2 numbers and maybe 3 numbers. You'll get 2 numbers, a high and a low, and then maybe a 3rd number, which is the probability of precipitation. And they make their plans solely based on that information, and that's it. They don't watch television. They don't seek additional information. That is it. So the question that Greg and I think we're all asking is there any hope? There are some that will watch the television and read the blogs and watch the videos we do, because weather is a big part of their business or their personal lives. So Jason, let me throw that up to you. I mean, you write some amazing content, but yet a lot of people just look at their phone. How do you draw people to read your content, the Capital Weather Gang?
Yeah, I think you need to. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. So, I think you just have to be on all platforms, and I know you've said this, James. I mean, you've got to do video, you've got to do radio, you've got to be on Twitter, Facebook, you've got to be wherever the people are, and you've got to show the value of the value-added information you're providing. And the more you do that, the more you build audience. And when people do have an important weather-related decision to make, they come to you because they know they can dig deeper. I mean, for most people on a daily basis, they don't necessarily need us, and we have to come to grips with that. And we have to, if we're not bringing in the numbers we need to on a daily basis, we need to figure out other ways of attracting eyeballs. And through the Capital Weather Gang, we write news stories about exciting, interesting weather happening in places all around the world. We show eye candy. We do whatever we can to kind of keep our audience engaged even when there's not interesting weather. But we also, at the same time, we try to provide really compelling, detailed weather content. So when you do have a important weather-related decision to make, you know where to go. So that's how we approach it. We found some success that way. I think we can continue to grow and get better. We can be on more platforms. We can be producing more content. We can certainly be growing our video side of things. So, but I think at the end of the day, most people's needs will be met through an app, and I think that's a reality. And in fact, I think automation is only going to make the forecast better. I mean, you see what Panasonic's doing with improving on the GFS model. You see what IBM is doing with David Kenny there and Watson, the Internet of Things, and I think they're going to become a forecasting behemoth in a matter of years with all of the data that they're gathering and ingesting into their systems. So I think our role is going to be to add value beyond that digital information, because people will be able to get it. It's going to be getting better and better. Right now, it's not always the best presented. I mean, on the crap apps that James talks about. But there will be a need for human interpretation. I mean, people will want to come to an individual when they have an important weather-related decision to make to get advice, much like they do when they're getting medical advice if they're sick and whatnot. So that's my take on things.
And Jason, you bring something up, the notion of automation, and this is not going to be well received by a number of my brethren in television, but I'm going to say it anyway because I think you need to hear it. 5-10 years from now, I think this notion of people graduating, getting meteorology. When I graduated in '99, there was this big backlash amongst a lot of meteorology graduates. It's like, I'm doing my own forecast, and I'm going to do my own forecast because it's me on TV and it's my credibility, which is all true. But anymore, you're one person. A lot of times you come in the morning, for example, like I said, I just worked 3 mornings earlier this week. You come in, you're half awake. You've got an hour and a half before you have to start taping things for television. And oh, by the way, you have to build graphics and do radio and do everything else in the middle of that. And you're going to say that you're a better forecaster than a room full of people who do nothing but weather at the Weather Service office? Or people who draw their own, this is my favorite, people who draw their own severe weather outlooks. You're going to tell me that you're better than the SPC at that? Come on. You might get lucky. You might get lucky. I'm going to say, you might get lucky any given Sunday, but on the average, the people that do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in Norman, Oklahoma are going to beat you. On the average. You might get lucky every now and again. You might, be able to add a little value in the margins. But in a television world, the margins aren't going to keep you afloat. You got to bring something that's in the wheelhouse, and I think, especially with the increasing, we're now doing 2.5 hours of news in the early afternoon or in the late afternoon, an hour and a half late evening, 4.5 hours in the morning, and there's some stations starting to add 4 a.m. newscasts and 3 p.m. newscasts. There's no time to do any real forecasting beyond just coming in, taking a look at sort of an overall picture, maybe trying to dig into the data and refining a piece or two here and there. But, we're getting to the point where the forecasting part of television weather is just, it's not going to be there. And I think I don't know, that frustrates me. As a meteorologist, that frustrates me because I got into the business to forecast the weather and to get my hands dirty in data, and I know that drives Fischel absolutely nuts because when he started 35 years ago, he had 2 newscasts a day, and he had like 5.5 hours to do nothing but dig in the data before the first weathercast. And he was running out of time back then, just like he's running out of time now. But it drives him nuts because they brought him on and paid him to be a meteorologist, and now it's like he walks in the door, and not 30 minutes after he's in the door, already on what winds up being a 10-hour shift, he's taping promos for this, and we're doing radio hits for that and everything else. He's got to do forecasting at home if he's going to do it at all because there's no uninterrupted time to do it.
Let me ask Jason a question. I came in at the end of his comment, but I'm interested in something he said. At the end of it was, people will come to the human, for bigger events or whatever it may be. Do you think that sustains the business model, though, or do we have to start looking at this as a promotional activity, that maybe it doesn't make the money, quote unquote, that it did before?
I mean, I think you can be successful as long as you're providing compelling content, weather-related content, and I think, weather is the number one topic of conversation. People talk about it. Even on a quiet weather day, you can usually find something going on somewhere that's of interest. So I think it may force some folks to broaden their horizons, have to cover more issues, because I think some of this is going to become more and more commodity type information. So I
would argue, Jason, it already is.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. I mean, the kind of value that even an experienced forecaster in a market that's been there 30, 40, 50 years, the kind of value they can add to the actual forecast is really very small, and I believe it's being further and further marginalized. Not to say that they can't add value in some high-pressure situations. The severe weather days, that extra experience is huge. But on 95% of the days, I'm not sure that that's enough to sustain the business model like Kevin's pointing out.
Yeah, and if I can just add, I think engagement's a really important part of all this, and I think that's what I think people who've sort of been legacy broadcast meteorologists, just doing their 5, 6, and 10s, and not sort of becoming immersed in social media and writing blogs or doing video chats, Facebook Live or whatever it is. If you're not engaging with your viewers and making yourself accessible, asking questions, that's another place where you can add value above and beyond what you can get on an app. Is you can make yourself really accessible, and people like that access. People like to be able to reach experts and have a conversation with them, feel like they really know their local meteorologist. So I think there is still, increasingly, more and more opportunities for that sort of engagement. So I definitely think the days of just delivering the weathercast are done, and I think you're going to even get more and more creative on the engagement side, because I think everyone's going to have to do it. And if you're going to want to sort of win readers or win viewers from your competitors, you have to be good at it, and you're going to have to also be like relentless in sustaining it. You have to be on almost all the time, and that's a grind, and that takes its toll. So it's not going to be a 9 to 5. It never was a 9 to 5 job, yeah. But it's not going to be a 2 to 10 job. It's not going to be a 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. job. It's going to be for the people that are successful, like James Spann, who works 18 hours or however many hours he does a day. I work a lot of hours. My team works a lot of hours. So I think you're going to have to be really committed, and you're going to just have to work harder, because I think as this information gets better and becomes more commoditized, the value-added piece, that's just hard work. That's just grit and determination.
I wrote that piece about hard work, and all the TV guys got mad at me. They got all bent out of shape. So, but I see Aubrey is here. Aubrey, do you got time for email?
Yes, and I would like to add, with these apps that I know you guys have on your stations and stuff, James, and I know James you have the James Spann app. What part do you guys put into those apps at your station? Are you guys putting in your forecasts at those forecasts for your apps?
Yes.
Yes, but let me just say this: my app went away. The new owners said we don't do business that way.
We don't like to make money.
Right. It's just it's a very strange situation. But where it is now, the weather app that we have, it's the standard crap app that most stations have. And again, I think what they've got at WRAL is not. I think they do their own stuff there, but we don't hear. It's pretty much the standard crap app. Although on the news and all-in-one app, they do highlight the blog, which is our handwritten content. We pour out our heart and soul over there, and so that content is highlighted prominently in the main TV station app here.
Because I don't think I've ever been more excited as when they told us this, I guess maybe about a year or so ago, is that we have the ability to edit our app and make it our forecast. And you have to sell it. You have to tell people, hey, it looks like a standard crap app, but hey, it's my forecast for this area.
Right, and again, I'm looking at the clock here. I've got to move on past this discussion, because if I don't start rolling this stuff right now, then it's probably not going to happen here. So let's see if Aubrey has any email to read tonight.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
Inbox is quite full by a couple emails, and I'll read a few of them. Jonathan Thompson just sent us an article this evening after the show started, and it was actually the article that Jason wrote about the offensive Habub. So thank you, Jonathan, for sending that in, and of course we did mention that. And the one email I do want to talk about is we actually got an email from Andy Bukowski about someone doing an analysis on the AccuWeather 90-day forecast, and it looks like the person who's actually doing the analysis actually sent us an email about a day before Andy did, which is really cool. So DJ Anderson, since April 12th, has been keeping track of the 90-day forecast for AccuWeather in St. Louis. He's been checking it several times a day, has found that it's usually updated just about once a day. He said basically he's got the whole Google Doc and stuff like that, and he said the forecast goes into cycles of 4 to 5 day streaks and then a 2 to 3 day streak. So they have not cracked the code.
Yes, and I can vouch for that with our festival here. I haven't put everything into a spreadsheet yet, but according to my records, in the 45 days preceding the May 13th and 14th, they never once hit the actual high and low.
Wow. So So yeah, how about them 45-day, 90-day forecasts?
Not worth much.
So we'll just quickly go through those. So thank you very much, guys, for sending those in. We appreciate the articles that you send in, of course, that information. And DJ, keep it up. Great job there taking on those statistics and really enjoy some of those emails. So we appreciate it. Email at weatherbrains.com. Don't forget to follow us on the Facebook and the Twitter, and you can send in your guest suggestions. Bill is anxiously awaiting. See, look at him. He's anxious right now. He's anxiously awaiting your emails on guest suggestions.
I'm just waiting for the new Madrid earthquake zone to go off again.
I got my drops in now on the soundboard. We're going to roll Professor Peters, Tony Rice. I will roll the weather roundup jingle, and I have got to be on television on the other side, so Nate will take control of this ship after these fine segments.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
When dealing with any tool, it's important to understand how it is used and the limitations it may have. I have been known to drive screws with a hammer once in a while, but a hammer is certainly not the right tool for working with screws. When dealing with radar, there are many kinds of impacts on the radar beam, and one of those is attenuation. Attenuation is the weakening of a radar beam as it moves away from the antenna when some of the energy is lost to scattering and absorption. The further a radar beam moves downstream, the more dust and hydrometeors the beam passes through. Because of attenuation, storms close to the radar are better sampled than storms far from the radar site. Beam spreading and attenuation combine to produce a much poorer sampling of storms further from the radar. Attenuation is higher when the radar beam has to flow through a large number of hydrometeors. Storms and precipitation close to the radar do degrade the radar energy before it reaches storms further from the radar. Smaller wavelength radar beams attenuate more rapidly than long wavelength radar beams, such as the WSR-88D, commonly known as NEXRAD. Because television stations operate in the C-band, they have a shorter range of high clarity compared with the WSR-88D radar, which operates in the S-band. Attenuation and beam spreading can account for much of the differences you see when looking at an echo from two different radar sources at the same time. You can get an answer to your weather questions simply by dropping an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
On this day in 1975, the European Space Agency, or ESA, was established in Paris. It's made up of 22 member states, with ESA facilities spread across Europe. Science missions are based in the Netherlands, Earth observing in Italy, mission control for the ESA is in Germany, and the European Space Astronomy Center is located in Spain. The agency has its roots in the European Launch Development Organization and European Space Research Organizations, which were established back in the 60s. But today it's among the major players in space research, along with NASA, the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, the Indian Space Research Organization, the Canadian Space Agency, and of course Russia's Roscosmos. They're all cooperating on major projects such as the International Space Station, Hubble Space Telescope, and upcoming James Webb Space Telescope. ESA is studying Mars as well. The Mars Express Orbiter has been mapping the red planet since the end of 2003. It's also been tested as a contingency relay for NASA's ground-based rovers such as Curiosity and Opportunity. Mars Express also offered a watchful eye in the skies above Gale Crater, back during the landing of Curiosity in 2012. Elsewhere on Mars, Mars reaches the closest point to the Earth at 5:35 p.m. Eastern today, a mere half an astronomical unit, or 46.78 million miles away. That's just 4.2 light minutes away. While Tropical Depression Bonnie is clouding up the skies along the East Coast, this won't be your only opportunity to see a big, bright, beautiful Mars. The next few weeks will also be a great time to look for Mars. This is also not your last chance to see it this close. The Earth catches up with Mars about every 2 years, so on July 31st, 2018, Mars and Earth will be even closer, just 0.38 astronomical units, or 35.78 million miles. That's your astronomy outlook Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
I love that song. Isn't it great? Say, weather roundup, and the big story, at least here on the East Coast the last few days, has been Tropical Storm Bonnie or what's left of it. And we had made landfall, I guess, Sunday as a tropical storm, promptly weakened to a depression, and then started streaming moisture all up the eastern seaboard. And Jason, you guys had a fairly wet go of it as well as a result of some Bonnie-related moisture.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of underwhelming up here. I think Reagan National had 4/10 of an inch of rain. Dulles, I think, had all of 1/100th of an inch. So,
but how many people canceled their plans because of their app forecasts?
Yeah, I mean, we caught some grief for it. I mean, in fact, we told people as soon as I guess Saturday that Memorial Day wouldn't be all bad. We were concerned about Sunday night, the potential for heavy rain. The Euro was showing precipitable water here over 2 inches, so we thought we might have a heavy rain event on Sunday night, and it really didn't materialize. Some of our eastern areas, our northeast areas, especially up towards New York City, further up the coast, got more rain than we did. So was not a big event here, fairly underwhelming on balance. And yeah, people did complain because I think maybe headlines can sometimes be a little bit deceiving, but I think on Wednesday or Thursday we wrote a headline saying that tropical system could spoil your Memorial Day or something like that, and people see that once. They see that one time. They don't stay tuned to the forecast, even though you're updating them. You're telling them Memorial Day is looking better and better. That one headline, is etched in stone in their mind. So it's hard to come back from that. And so I think we were dealing with that a little bit. So you've got to be careful. I mean, it's on the one hand, a headline that will attract page views, it'll attract an audience, and people will read it. But then if they're not paying attention after that, then you potentially lose some credibility. So that's a lesson learned for us on that.
Yeah, we had. I think that's an issue. That notion of first impressions having the most weight, and you having to anchor on that, and then you adjust back from. There's classic communication research done back in the 70s by Tversky and Kahneman, talking about this idea that once you've sort of gotten something in your mind, you have to adjust away from it, and there's some inertia there that has to be overcome. Yep. And the point of the research is you never really overcome it. So that first forecast out there, that first headline, sometimes can be the one that sticks. Looking at high temperatures around the country today, we had a big area of 90s across much of interior California, southern Nevada, even a pocket of some 100s there. Nice toasty weather with thermal lows developed or in place there. Area of low pressure across North Dakota, nice frontal system stretching across the central part of the country. We had some pretty rough weather in the Metroplex yesterday morning. Was on the air with that line of thunderstorms coming through. Big MCS, a nice bookend vortex turned into a nice MCV for a bit on Monday morning. So I got the Memorial Day off to a fairly stormy start, but looks like we may be heading into a pattern in the next few days where it's warm along the edges of the country and maybe a little bit cooler in the middle, as looking at some of the Climate Prediction Center's outlooks going forward. Anybody else have any weather-related stuff while we're on this whole weather idea, since it's a weather podcast?
Tomorrow's first day of hurricane season.
That's right.
Yes.
And
we already have two.
That's right. So the next name is Colin. So we'll
that's no name for a hurricane,
Colin and then Danielle will be the next two. And also the first day of meteorological summer, which is our opportunity to give Tony Rice all manner of grief, because he's stuck on this whole astronomical thing. But realistically, we all know in this room anyway that summer starts on June 1st. So take that, Tony. All right, let's go around the horn and talk about picks of the week. This is the part of the program where we give a weather-related something. Can be a blog post, an article. Leslie, I hope you're ready to share something weather-related. Can be self-promotional. We're perfectly fine with that around here. And I will go first. Speaking of self-promotion, we had Carrie Emanuel in last spring to talk about hurricanes climate change in North Carolina, and it was the first of a series of town hall meetings hosted by our TV station's Greg Fishel, and we had Carrie Manuelin gave a really nice brief presentation, very accessible, talking about the future impact of climate change, and then a really great Q&A that followed that has been really the model for a number of these conversations over the last year and a half. If you got some time, it's worth checking out. It's about an hour and a half long video clip, but it's worth checking out. It's pretty cool stuff, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback about it because we're addressing some of these thorny issues from a third angle that a lot of folks don't consider. So it's good stuff. We'll start over. I see Aubrey there. Aubrey, you have a pick of the week for us, ma'am?
Mine is spaghettimodels.com. I know I've had it before. It's just a really cool site conglomerate of all sorts of pages and information. Just to tip you off for hurricane season.
I had spaghetti for dinner tonight. Does that count?
It does. It does. And now you have to eat it until November 30th.
Sounds good to me. Bill Murray, pick of the week, kind sir.
Yeah, I'm going to use Leslie's Blueprint for Safety. I found the newsletters there especially fascinating and extremely informative, so Brian's got that, and it'll be up on the website. Looking forward to Steve Piltz next week, Joe Whitty the following week, Dr. James Fleming on the 20th, and James Hocker and Andrea Melvin from OK First on the 27th. As we turn over into July, we'll be talking about the NWA annual meeting, have Kevin Closel on the 11th, and Trevor Boucher on the 18th. So a bunch of great guests coming up on WeatherBrains, and special thanks tonight to Leslie and Jason for being on the show.
Excellent. Well, thank you, sir. Brian Peters, pick of the week.
Yes, I hope I can get this one to come up, but one of the tornadoes that was photographed in Colorado either yesterday or today, I'm not absolutely sure of the date, was very photogenic. And I'm going to try to have a picture of that, and it has all these numbers and letters, and I can't come up with it, and so it'll be posted on the webpage. I also want to mention that the number of subscribers to Skywritings continues to go up. Alabama still leads with 17.8% of the subscribers. Oklahoma a close second with 8.1%. Texas third at 6.6%. And then everybody else is below that. So. But we like having subscribers from all over the country, and we're only missing 4 of the 50 states: Alaska, Delaware, North Dakota, and Rhode Island. So if you listen to this show, subscribe from those states, and we'll fill out the rest of the map.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brian Peters. See, Rick Smith, are you still with us? I see you're muted, and it's hard to say. Yeah, okay. Pick of the week, sir.
I am still here, and my pick of the week, and this may contribute to what James was asking about earlier when it's some stupid heat rules. No, I'm not going to say that. There's no stupid heat rules in this pick. This is the Weather Service has started doing a seasonal safety pages. So now tomorrow they're releasing our summer safety page, which will include all kinds of cool information, everything from lightning to severe weather, rip currents, hurricanes, heat, lightning, all kinds of things. And there's some really cool infographics there, whole presentations you can use, social media plans, ready-made tweets, Facebook posts, all kinds of things, not just for the Weather Service to use, but for anybody to use if you want to help get the word out about all the different hazards that we have during the summertime.
Very cool. Thank you, sir. I'll touch on James's pick. It is the Tropical Cyclone Guidance Project at RAL, which is part of UCAR. This is a sort of overall overview of all the tropical systems going on at any one spot, as well as links to guidance and plots and all that kind of stuff. Check that out. Leslie, a pick of the week from you, ma'am.
Okay, I want you guys to go to Hurricane Strong and watch the video. The great John Zarella, formerly of CNN, who helps us out a great deal, covered so many hurricanes. He's really passionate about this whole topic. I think what I want people to see there is that for everything that all of you guys do and that we do, we're not getting there unless we have individuals and families getting ready. And I think they'll be inspired by the video, and I think they'll enjoy it. And at the end, they'll learn how to do the pose.
There you go. There you go. It's interesting you mentioned that this idea that, you know, I mean, we know it, but this idea that individual preparedness is at the core. I was at the North Carolina Hurricane Workshop last week, and we had one of the emergency management professionals from Walmart as the keynote speaker, and he talked about how one of Walmart's focuses, or foci, if you want to get all academic, is having their associates being personally prepared, and they say it's good for everything. It's good for business. It's good for getting their stores open. It's when their associates are prepared and able to deal with this, then everything else moves more smoothly. And so they spend a lot of time really making sure that their associates are prepared for this sort of thing before thinking about some of the other sort of natural concerns about, well, what sort of product do we have? They think about all those things as well, but they really focus on that internal personal preparedness, because without that, you don't have employees, you don't have a store, you don't have the logistics that gets everything there. I thought that was a really interesting presentation. Jason Samenow, pick of the week from you, sir.
Right. So speaking of rants, Barbara Boostad, she's a forecaster in the National Weather Service. She wrote a great little piece ranting on people who take tornado selfies. That is, they well, it speaks for itself. You know, they take a picture of themselves in front of a tornado, which is presumably destroying somebody's life or their property. And I think her description of it as tacky was on point. It cheapens the severity of the event, and I thought it was well written, and we actually did a little follow-up blog on her piece on our own blog, but I'll point you all to her original piece, which I thought was well done. The URL, Nate, I don't know if you can put that up.
Yeah, we'll get it. We'll
got it.
Yeah,
I've got it.
Excellent. Yeah, so I thought you did a good job with that, and was a point well taken.
You know, it's something that Alan Seals has presented at NWA and AMS meetings for many, many years, this idea that, you know, we need to root for people, not for storms. And whenever we talk about a hurricane, it's, oh, it's a beautiful storm, or oh my gosh, it cheapens this notion that that thing could kill people, could turn lives upside down. And we need to find, you know, yes, we can appreciate it from a meteorological standpoint, but we have to be very careful in how we express that, because at the end of the day, a lot of these storms are killers, and they turn lives upside down, and that's something we need to pay attention to. Jason, if folks are interested in getting in touch with you, how can they do that? On social media, on the internet, IRL, as it were?
Excellent. Yeah, so on our blog, that's the hub of all of our information, WashingtonPost.com/CapitalWeatherGang. Our Twitter feed is very active, at Capital Weather, capital spelled with an A-L at the end, capital Weather, and Facebook.com/Capital Weather. So those are the three primary ways to reach us.
Fantastic. Leslie, how can folks get a hold of you on the internet and in real life?
So we are at Federal Alliance on Twitter, and I'm at LC Henderson. My blog is Leslie Chapman Henderson at WordPress. And on Facebook, it's Federal Alliance.
Fantastic. Leslie Henderson, Jason Samenow, thank you for being with us this week, especially on a holiday shortened week. We appreciate you making time for us.
Thank you.
Pleasure. And a lot of fun.
And thanks for staying up late. That's great.
Yeah, welcome anytime. Well, this is the everybody's favorite All About the Weather netcast, the original All About the Weather podcast, WeatherBrains. We normally do the program, by the way, on Monday nights at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern via Google Hangout, but because yesterday was Memorial Day, we shifted it today. We're back on Monday next week, and you can check out upcoming guests, all of our information, bios, contact information for all of the normal panelists coming up. If you have a question, if you have a guest suggestion, we love getting guest suggestions. We're booked out, I think, through about the end of July, but we're starting to fill out August, and of course, if folks drop out from time to time, have to reschedule. So we got a really nice email from Justin Gertz earlier this week about a number of guest suggestions, some of which we hadn't had before, which is great. So keep those emails coming. Email at weatherbrains.com. You can find us on Twitter at WeatherBrains. We are plus WeatherBrains on Google+. We're on the Facebook as well. And, of course, you go to weatherbrains.com, and that'll link you everywhere you need to go. Until next week, for Bill, Brian, Audrey, James, Kevin, Rick, our guests, and myself, I am not James Spann. Good night, and God bless.
It's funny, Leslie, that you mentioned John Zarella, because Brian and I were covering a hurricane on the Alabama Gulf Coast, and I was in the hotel lobby when John Zarella came busting through the doors. It was Hurricane Dennis when it went Category 4 in the Gulf, and he said, "We're checking out of the hotel. We're out of here." And I knew when he was leaving, it was time to close the hotel.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hey, Leslie, you got an email from me asking about the exact video link, please.
Okay.
So if you see a strange thing-
Hurricanestrong.org. There you go.
Do what?
Hurricanestrong.org.
Yeah, I know, but you mentioned a specific video. I want to get the right video.
Okay, sir. It's right there, but I'll
okay.
bring that up too.
All right. I'll check it out.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Jason, Leslie,
Good night.
thanks for coming on tonight.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
You
Bye.
bet.
Take care.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
had some really good stuff going on tonight. See if they're still going. Hang on. No, they're not. They just ended. So this is the WeatherBrains corporate headquarters at a Tuesday night special. Let me turn the camera on here. There we go. So now we're all looking at each other. Had a great show tonight. I want to thank you guys for bearing with us. We didn't do the show last night because of Memorial Day, so we had a Tuesday night special. So we're going to turn off the WeatherBrains stream. Thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll see you all next week. And we're going to hit the stop broadcast button.